forbidden ASMR episode. For this video, I am going to be holding my mic purely because my mum's having some work done in the front garden outside, and so yeah, if there's any noises you can hear, I do apologise, but there's nothing I can do and I have to film today. So I've turned the gain on my mic right down, literally non-existent. Yeah, I do apologise for the background noise, but there will be a lot of it in this video, unfortunately, and I can't really film any of the time. So anyway, let's get on into the video. Okay, so the first conspiracy we're going to be looking at is the Black Flash of Provincetown. The Black Flash of Provincetown, Massachusetts, terrorised the seaside New England town in the early 20th century. Was there something there prowling the dunes and streets, or was it a mummy lie which got out of hand? Provincetown Advocate, October 26th, 1933. Fall brings out the Black Flash. Hard winter certain as cabin fever story start. It ain't usually about until cabin fever time that the balmy stories start. After the folks have been penned up there for too long a time in too little space with just the same faces to look at every morning, afternoon and evening, then the crazy yarns begin circling. But winter seems to be shutting in early this year. Here it is only October and the Black Flash has been prowling, scaring kids that they won't go out nights and won't go to bed, grabbing women, jumping over 10-foot edges with no trouble at all. Chair springs on his feet is the explanation. The Provincetown Advocate, November the 9th, 1939. Chief denies current rumours. Chief of Police Anthony P. Davers this morning absolutely denied the rumours current that so-called Black Flash had been captured. As far as I'm concerned, the Black Flash is dead and gone, said the chief. That's where the written in history of the Black Flash of Provincetown begins and ends. The oral history went on quite a bit longer into the 1940s, and then came the internet and resurrected the Black Flash. sightings were reported, McDaniel became an unwitting celebrity. His wife just wished it was over. As I sat drinking and reliving the time, some 40 years later, my drinking partner laughed and told me the truth. It had been a classmate of his wearing an ape suit playing a prank. My thoughts turned to McDaniel with sympathy. He did see something extraordinary, something that did belong, and merely speaking the truth had him branded a madman and an alcoholic for the rest of his life. Often the most terrifying tales aren't supernatural, but what man does to man. The oral history of the Black Flash of Provincetown. The Black Flash was first reported by some kids, school kids on their way home, who said it jumped out from behind the dunes. It was tall, dressed all in black and incredibly fast. The kids ran, the figure's maniacal laugh echoed after them. Then it was an adult who claimed to have encountered it. Marie Costa was walking past the Provincetown Hall one October evening when it jumped out in front of her from behind some bushes. In addition to its black wardrobe, she claimed it had glowing blue eyes, silver ears, and could jump impossibly high, which the newspaper account bore out. She tucked into a coffee shop, told what had happened, and several men went to pursue it with no luck. The police said it was a hoax, but Costa was genuinely frightened. After Costa's encounter, more reports filtered in. Some night had several reports from different parts of town, sometimes simultaneously. Even the police started to admit that perhaps there was something to the report, something devilish. It was called many, many things. In addition to the Black Flash, the Provincetown Phantom, and the Devil of the Dunes. Like the Enfield monster, it became something of a celebrity. War was brewing in Europe, Hitler's dark star was rising, and people, always on the look for distraction, were perhaps more hungry for it now than usual. As time went on, the stories grew bolder, not content to simply startle. The Black Flash now began to attack. A teenager coming home from the library was accosted and claimed it spewed blue flames. Supposedly, the police had it cornered in a school playground with the high fence. 4 officers entered the playground with guns drawn, telling the Black Flash of Provincetown to surrender or they'd fire. It laughed and left the 10-foot fence. The officers shot but either missed or their bullets had no effect. One of the officers claimed the face was but a silver-painted mask. Even if it was a person in disguise, the locals believed it possessed superhuman powers. Bullets seemed to have no effect. It could jump amazing heights, move at incredible speeds. Charles Farley saw it in his fence in backyard and blasted it with a shotgun, but it just laughed and leapt the 8-foot fence. Provincetown, now a gay haven, wasn't quite so accepted of alternative last hours at the time. Some said it was a gay man intent on frightening children and the locals. One skeptic who put forth this view found himself face to face with the Black Flash and said he was a large, very tall and definitely human, wearing a cloak and a hood, with silver eyes that glowed in the dark. He told the creature to get out of his way, only to have his face slapped so hard it knocked him to the ground. After that, he was a believer. The last report sighting of the Black Flash of Provincetown came from a group of kids who claimed to have spotted it coming toward them in the fog. After running home and finding the house empty, they locked the doors and listened in horror as it tried to make its way inside. One enterprising child put a kettle on, ran to the second floor and poured boiling water on its head, and it ran away, never to be seen again. Theories on Provincetown's Black Flash, but these are all oral traditions. There is no evidence of the Black Flash of Provincetown after November of 1939, though the tale circulated for another 6 years. Some thought the Black Flash was a local athlete who was strong enough and tall enough to fit the bill. Others said it was a gay tourist who had stayed past the high season and was living in a shack hidden in the dunes. A retired police chief at the time, Anthony Davers, claimed the Black Flash was simply 14 that's all I have on that little legend myth. And then the next thing that I'm going to be talking about is the red market in the US. What would happen if the United States legalized the sale of human organs? Economists will note the seductive market logic with regulation. Proponents of legalization suggest the organ shortage will disappear. The market will arrive at a fair price for human tissue, and new laws will regulate away criminal elements. For argument's sake, let's assume that the United States would be able to create its own equitable system. What would happen in the rest of the world? Whether we like it or not, we live in the era of globalization, and if the US legalizes the market for body parts, there is no reason to think that international economies won't play a role in how a patient decides to procure plant organs. According to the National Foundation for Transplants, a kidney transplant costs about $260,000 in the illegal organ markets in India, Egypt and Pakistan. The same procedure rings in just shy of $20,000, certified organ included. Immunosuppressant drugs have come so far that a broker can arrange a transplant in as little as 30 days. The only thing stopping the typical American transplant patient from going abroad and buying an organ is the difficulty of making contact with the broker and the threat of what might happen if they get caught. In the real world, kidneys don't have a fixed price. Instead, the market for human body parts is a lot like the one for used cars. They're only worth what someone is willing to sell for them. In the age of cheap international travel, where state-of-the-art hospitals are but the most impoverished slums on earth, hundreds of thousands of people are available and willing to sell their flesh for pennies on the dollar. Some of these areas are so well known among organ traffickers and brokers that they've earned this name, Kidneyvilles, for their plentiful supply of willing donors. Between 2006 and 2010, I made India my home while researching the global trade in human body parts. India is notable in the organ trafficking world because of its advanced hospitals, no plentiful supply of extreme poverty. In 2004, after a tsunami ripped across South Asia and slammed into the eastern coast of the country, hundreds of thousands of people had few options for work or making a livelihood. A perfect opportunity for organ brokers. It was a buyer's market and everyone sold. Typically the brokers promised $2,000 per organ, but only deliver the advance, always finding one excuse or another not to pay the rest of the money. Even so, husbands sold their kidneys and then pressured their wives to sell theirs. The price for a kidney fell to as low as $600 when I visited one camp called Enfield outside the bustling metropolis of Chennai. I met 80 women with foot-long scars across their abdomens. These were not the equitable arrangements that proponents of organ markets advocate for. This was a symptom of extreme poverty. Of course, none of the people in that camp could ever expect to receive an organ should one of their own fail. That the one with organ markets is that human tissue always moves up and never down, the social hierarchy. Till that was legal, an illegal market. What would happen if the trade were well regulated abroad? To answer this, it's helpful to review what happened in the market for human surrogate babies. In the United States, it is legal to pay a woman to carry a child, so long as the money is called compensation and not coercion. Even so, an American surrogate might cost as much as $100,000 in such arrangements. Once the market was clearly defined in the United States, other countries with loose some definitions of human rights fall for their share of the market.
Okay, so I'm filming this another day because for some reason I can't find the last clip anywhere, which is really annoying because I've already filmed it. So I'm having to like film it on my phone without my microphone. I'm just gonna put it up anyway, just so obviously you get the last bit of the video. Otherwise you're gonna be like, well, where was she going with this? In 2002, India became the go-to destination for procuring a budget surrogate womb. To the surprise of no one, the Indian industry soon began to cut corners. Women were housed under the lock and key in houses known to the press as baby factories, because US patients demanded to know the condition of their children during the entire course of the pregnancy. Surrogates became virtual slaves under the doctor's perpetual surveillance. The factories multiplied, and tens of thousands of international customers reasoned that if it was legal to hire a surrogate at home, why not save money abroad? In some cases, when a pregnancy didn't go as planned and the doctor had to choose between the life of an unborn surrogate baby and the life of the mother did not always survive. Late last year, India finally outlawed surrogacy tourism after non-stop incidents and official entries into the surrogate's well-being. Now the commercial surrogacy boom seems to be moving to Cambodia, where regulations are still loose. Still, the rise of surrogacy scandals is a warning about what might happen if we legalise organ sales in the United States. Even if the trade appears to work at home, there is no way to ensure that American customers won't look for better deals abroad. We cannot solve our own organ shortage by exploiting the poor and helpless people on the other side of the world. Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and let me know